Yep.
Alrighty.
You have quorum? Here's some.
Believe so. Yeah, it looks like everyone's here.
Okay. I call this meeting of the Youth Commission to order at 6:33 p.m. Can I get a roll call?
You sure can. Vice Chair Lee.
Present.
Commissioner Gray.
Present.
Chairperson Schaefer.
Present.
Commissioner Ganis.
Present.
Commissioner Au.
Present.
Commissioner Manzano. It looks like she's in, but she didn't respond. I guess she's muted. Marilyn, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Commissioner Manzano.
Okay, present.
Okay. Commissioner Aplatka.
Present.
You guys have to unmute.
Present.
Okay. Commissioner Chang.
Present.
Commissioner Ringel.
Present.
Commissioner Cherry.
Present.
Commissioner Fukushima.
Present.
Ad hoc committee member Greenfield, Brian. Not present. And ad hoc committee member Greenfield, Jaden. Not present. Okay. And ad hoc committee member Marcus Searing.
Present.
Okay. Adult member Stover.
Present.
And adult member Bubenacek. Absent. And adult member Gamut. I received an email from him saying he's going to be late. And I'll forward that to the clerk's office to let them know. Okay.
All right. Oath of office for new appointees administered by the city clerk.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Kronberger. I'm Chief Deputy City Clerk. I'll be standing in for Eleanor Manzano, City Clerk. I understand per the roll call that we have Anthony Ganis present, and we also have Michael Lee Chang present. Is that correct?
Yes. That is correct. Quick note, my last name has been changed since my last oath.
Okay. Is that A-S-S-I-N-K?
Yes.
Pronounced Wasink?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, we will correct that. Thank you. And, okay.
Oh.
Both of you, please. Commissioner Wasink and Commissioner Chang, both raise your hand and repeat after me, please. I state your name.
I, Michael,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations. And you're ready to do another roll call, Mr. Aguirre.
Okay.
All right. May I get a second roll call?
You sure can. Vice Chair Lee.
Present.
Commissioner Gray.
Present.
Chairperson Schaefer,
Present.
Commissioner Wassink,
Present.
Commissioner Au,
Present.
Commissioner Manzano,
Present.
Commissioner Aplaka,
Present.
Commissioner Chang,
Present.
Commissioner Ringel,
Present.
Commissioner Cherry,
Present.
Commissioner Fukushima,
Present.
Ad hoc committee member Greenfield, Brian. Absent. And ad hoc committee member Greenfield, Jaden. Absent. Commissioner Searing, ad hoc committee member Searing.
Present.
Okay. Adult member Stover.
Present.
Adult member Bubenchek. Absent. And as stated earlier, adult member Gamut replied via email that he would be attending late. And that does it for the roll call.
Okay.
And
Can I get a
congratulations.
motion to approve the order of the agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Gray,
Second.
seconded by Vice Chair Lee. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Blue folder items, additional backup materials. Blue folder items are additional backup materials to administrative reports and public comments received after the printing and distribution of the agenda packet for receive and file. Seeing none, moving on. Consent calendar. Business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or discussion, are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar items be removed, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from this consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded comment consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in the motion following oral communications. Can I get a motion to approve the affidavit of posting and the approval of minutes?
Motion.
Motion by Vice Chair Lee,
Second.
second by Commissioner Gray. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Excluded consent calendar items, seeing none, moving on. Public participation of non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Do we have any?
I believe we do have one attendee. I don't know if she is going to be speaking or not. She's an attendee, but I received an email that she would be attending, but I don't. She has her hand up, so I believe that maybe she would like to speak. I don't see her here. Let me see. How would we get her to speak? I don't see her on the. Okay, there she is. She's allowed to talk now. There she is. Okay.
Hi, am I just video or audio?
You are just audio right now.
You're just audio right now.
Okay.
Was there something you would like to speak on?
No, hi, I'm sorry. My name is Deirdre Brand. I'm calling to talk about the AES power plant. I am speaking on behalf of the South Bay Parkland Conservancy. I'm a retired environmental science, and full disclosure, I'm married to the mayor, Bill Brand. I was hoping I could potentially exceed 3 minutes. I don't know if that's possible or not before I start. Like 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Okay.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, great.
We're allowed 3 minutes, but the commission can vote on that.
Okay.
Commissioners, we can vote on that if you guys would allow more time.
Would this be a motion?
Yes, there has to be a motion first.
Okay. Can I get a motion to afford Ms. Brand an extra few minutes?
A motion. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lee Chang,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Oplatka. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
All right, thank you guys so much. I will try to make this as brief as I can. I'm calling because we need to shut down the AES power plant that is currently polluting our coastline. I could tell you a long story about politics and money and oil and such, but that would be a much longer discussion. But that used to be a Great Salt Lake. It's actually a California historic monument. It was 35 acres of a salt lake and wetlands. The Tongva tribe lived there. The Europeans took it over in the late 1800s and turned it into a salt works. It was producing about 10,000 pounds of salt a day. The first power plant was built there in 1900, and in 1950s, by then the whole lake and the wetlands had been filled in for industrial activities. Now, currently, there's 3 operating plants at the current AES site. The newest of them was built in 1967, and the other 2 were built in 1954. So you can only imagine the type of pollution this plant puts out. It's really an archaic behemoth. In the early 2000s, the State Water Control Board, who are tasked with taking care of our water quality, realized how polluting these plants were. They're called once-through cooling, which means they use ocean water for cooling their industrial activities. And they were basically between Scattergood plant, El Segundo, and AES Redondo, they were literally recirculating the entire inner Santa Monica Bay waters every 6 weeks. And they kill everything in their path. Everything, all the water is sucked in. It kills wildlife, even killed a diver once at AES, and all the photoplankton and other things that are the building blocks of a healthy ocean ecology. So they adopted this policy called once-through cooling policy in early 2000 that they were going to eliminate all of these plants. And it was phased out. And our plant was supposed to be eliminated at the end of December in 2020. But there was some brownouts that year. And so the PUC and everyone else sort of freaked out, and they decided they needed to extend it for another year. I should tell you, by this time, a developer had bought the plant. They were ready to decommission it. And due to much activism of my husband and many others over the last 15 years, at least 25 acres of that will be a coastal park, and the wetlands will be reestablished. There's 7 acres of wetlands happening right then. We had been committed millions of dollars from the county and state agencies to turn this into a state park. And then the PUC came in and extended it for another year. They gave them $40 million a year just to keep it on the ready. And the developer pulled his deal with the city, and we started from scratch again. So it's supposed to end at the end of December this year, but now they're coming back again, and they want to extend it for another 2 years. And they're saying the reason they need to do this is that they're concerned about brownouts and blackouts. And I'm trying to tell you that this is a con, which is what they did last year when they extended it. Because in the most hottest days of the year last year, the hottest days, every time they called on AES to perform, it could not produce electricity because either it had mechanical failures or ironically, it overheated every single time. So they're saying that they need it as a peaker plant, and it simply can't serve as a peaker plant because it's 68 years old. And it takes 12 to 24 hours to even start up. What's really happening is a lot of politics, a lot of money. Newsom was concerned about the recall. He doesn't want any power to go out this year because he's got an election next year. The regulatory agencies haven't gotten their act together to phase this stuff out. There's bad power planning. When we were having brownouts and blackouts last year, we were selling power to Arizona, et cetera. So I am encouraging every single person who lives in Redondo Beach, especially students, to call the water board. I will provide you with information. I'll provide it to Michael and he'll send it on to you. Email the water board. Tell them enough is enough, that we want this terrible polluting power plant off of our coast. You, of all people, should be concerned the amount of CO2 emissions this plant puts out, which contributes significantly to global warming. It kills our ocean and sea life. It spews toxic smoke all over your neighborhoods and your schools. It's noisy, it's ugly. We want our park. So I encourage all of you to be activists if you can. The only thing that fights money, the AES is lobbying the water board to the tune of about $20,000 a month in consultants and lobbyists, is for everyone to stand up, particularly the younger generation, say enough is enough. We want that plant shut down. So anyways, I'll share that information with Michael, and I really hope you guys will do what you can to clean up our town, our oceans, and our neighborhood. That's it.
Okay. Thank you for speaking, Mrs. Brand. We really appreciate that, and we'll see what we can do. Louis, you have your hand up. Did you?
I'm sorry, no. I was just gonna let her know that her time was approaching an end, and I was informed that in the future, we allow them to speak first, and then after the 3-minute mark that we vote, that's when we make the motion and extend it then. In the future, we'll do that, okay?
Okay.
So that's for the next time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you can continue.
Okay. Items continued from previous agendas. Seeing none, moving on. Items for discussion prior to action. We have a presentation by Heidi Swan, author of A Night in Jail. Staff recommends that the Youth Commission receive and file the presentation by Heidi Swan. Do I have to get a motion for that?
Oh, yes, because there's to receive and file the, we need a motion to receive and file the presentation.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Alice, seconded by Commissioner Cherry. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Heidi?
Thank you so much, Chairperson Schaefer and Luis, for inviting me to present, and thank you to the Youth Commission for having me tonight. It actually is a very timely time for me to come because Redondo Beach is considering putting in marijuana shops. Has anybody heard about this? Raise your hand if you've heard about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and unmute yourselves because I want to be able to hear what you guys have to say. So just off the top of your heads, how do you think this would affect Redondo Union High School if there were to be marijuana shops open in 1 or 2 locations in Redondo Beach? Would anyone like to share how they think it would affect or not affect the students at Redondo Union?
Yes.
Chairperson Schaefer, those that have raised their hands, you could call on them individually.
Okay. Commissioner Gray, would you like to speak?
Yes, actually. I think that it could be a threat, definitely, because there are not enough security in the shops that are already in Redondo already. There isn't enough protection for these high schoolers, and these high schoolers are able to obtain all of this fairly easily. And I feel like if it is out in the open, people will kind of be more tempted to go in there and more to kind of like advocate for all this. But mainly my concern is about the protection because there's not a lot of security. And yes, there are ID checks, but there needs to be more. There just needs to be more to kind of secure that no one underage will be able to purchase these items.
And so what is the age that you can purchase, Ms. Gray?
For what I know, all I know is that high schoolers are able to obtain this. And the legal age is 21.
Mhm.
And that is by state and by country, basically. So I just feel like there needs to be a lot more protection because this is able to get into kids' hands.
So are you seeing it at school or just seeing it amongst your peers or you hear about it?
I hear about it. I definitely hear about it like amongst my peers and especially kids from RUHS.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Commissioner Lee Chang, would you like to comment?
Yes, please. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, I know that in California, marijuana is legal for possession and use for 21 years and older, but as for federal laws, I know it's illegal in federal laws in that area. As for how it's going to affect our high school, I can't really say that I mean, if these shops pop up, that it's going to change much. Kids who use marijuana are going to continue to use it. And I feel like we should be focusing on not shutting down shops that are going to come in, more so teaching our students how to use it responsibly, or even, make them aware and understand the dangers of using marijuana, to have them step away. And last time I checked, I believe Beach City's health district has their own commission of students from our high school to deal with these issues.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Lee, would you like to speak?
Yes, so I'm going to disagree on a point that Commissioner Lee Chang just made. Teach high schoolers to use it responsibly. I mean, that's blatant violation of even California law where it's illegal. But I also think that, to get to Ms. Swan's question, that it will be easier to access if we have marijuana dispensary shops in Redondo Beach, because, if it's closer, people are going to be able to go to it more often. So I do not think that it would be a good idea to have marijuana dispensary shops in Redondo Beach. There's also a quality of life issue that I think plays into this as well. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your comment about this would not be safe for a teenager regardless. And why regardless is marijuana unsafe for a teenager? Who can tell me?
Commissioner Oplaka, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I can add on that. From what we've learned in, I believe, talks mainly in middle school, we've learned that it can severely damage their lungs and can lead to long-term illness and shortness of lifespan. The other thing I wanted to add on to what Commissioner Gray was speaking on. We heard, as the Youth Commission, had a presentation from Beach City's Health District, I want to say May of this past year. And they were talking about how it seemed very easily in the study for students in the South Bay to obtain alcohol as well as drugs. So I do believe that we need some sort of enforcement when these new shops do pop up to make sure that we don't have high school students coming into these shops, because students who do want to use these drugs are probably going to get attracted by these shops.
I think there's one more that has a hand up.
Commissioner Ringel?
In my opinion, I feel like the same way, if weed is legal or marijuana is legal in California for those who are 21 and up, I understand that it's illegal under federal law, but to me, it doesn't make the most sense to try and block them the same way that you have to be 21 to drink alcohol, but we still have liquor shops and our grocery stores sell liquor and things like that. I think it makes more sense to target why middle schoolers and high schoolers are looking for this drug, because truthfully, like going back to middle school, I know that the kids who are looking for it are going to find it, whether they find it in Redondo Beach or whether they find a dealer who's going 30 minutes or an hour away to find it. I feel like regardless, people are going to be able to get their hands on it. So maybe intervening and targeting why students so young are wanting to get their hands on it would be more effective.
That's a really good point. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it was like for me when I was a teenager. When I was growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, nobody knew anything about the negative effects of THC. Nothing. And nobody knew anything about the developing brain either. And we had, at that time in our nation, people were using marijuana more than it has ever been in our country. And so I tried it. I used it a few times, but every time it was a really bad experience for me. And one time I completely lost touch with reality, and I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was with. And the friend who was getting high with me was perfectly fine, but I was not. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that I found out there's a name for what happened to me. It's called cannabis-induced psychosis. And this is a diagnosis in the DSM-5. And this is what professionals use to diagnose people with all kinds of mental illnesses. And so 10% of the population is predisposed to psychosis. And we'll talk more about that in my presentation, but most of us don't know it. And so even a small amount of marijuana can trigger a psychotic episode in a person like me and a person like my brother. I didn't like losing touch with reality. It scared the dickens out of me. My brother liked it, and he did it regularly for many years and got through college and graduate school just fine. And after that, he became homeless with schizophrenia and he was addicted to crack, and his whole life fell apart. Now, I'm grateful to say that he's sober, and I'm going to share my screen at this point. I'm grateful to say that he is sober today. But when we saw the studies that showed that there is a link between teen marijuana use and adult mental illness, we were blown away. We were like, why doesn't everybody know about this risk? It doesn't happen to everyone, but you don't know who you are until it happens to you. And this is a very, very dangerous thing. So use today, because of the high potency products, can have long-term consequences. So we wrote the first fictional story, which illustrates the negative effects of THC. I have a great connection to Redondo Beach for this. We filmed this short film based on the book. The book is available on Amazon. We have over 200 4.5-star reviews. We made it into a short film. This is a Redondo Beach actor, Charlie Scola, and a Manhattan Beach actor, Travis Tobin. He was from Miracosta High School, and we had a Miracosta High School director on this. It was a terrific film, and we had a lot of views. We were in a film festival a year ago, LA Shorts Film Festival. And many of you may know Jason Young, Redondo Beach actor. He did some scenes from the play for us, and we have that recorded on our website if you ever want to see it. And so Redondo Beach Police have been very good to me, and Bill Brand has as well. He did a webinar with me last year to talk about the mental health harms of marijuana. And really quickly, just a couple of months ago, I was interviewed on Fox.com because they were talking about legalizing at the federal level. And so I was given the opportunity to talk to Fox.com about my thoughts on it. And my thoughts were this: when our legislators talk about legalizing marijuana at the federal level, at the local level, they need to be honest about the side effects. They need to be honest about the risks of use. And there are so many studies out there showing it to be detrimental to mental health, and nobody's talking about it. They act like it's just all plus, and it's not. And so in the handout that I provided to Luis, there's a link, and so you can see my 3-minute video interview, and you can also see the printed article, because I'm a Democrat and I voted for legalization. And what I've seen the changes in our own community in Redondo, Manhattan, Hermosa, El Segundo has made me change how I feel about legalization. And mostly it's because of the increase in youth use. So let's look at this chart here. And we were just talking about how a pot shop might affect Redondo Beach. And if we look down here, the latest data from Redondo from 2018 to 2019 shows 18% of 11th graders using in the past 30 days. Now that's higher than the rest of California and LA County. Not as high as Manhattan Beach. Manhattan Beach, it's a lot more prevalent. And this is one of the things that really is tough for me as an adult, is that this is a change that I've seen at our beaches. I've noticed a lot more young people using marijuana at the beach, a lot of adults using marijuana at the beach. And so I've seen this become more normalized since legalization. And so I just want to point out this one little graph down here at the end. This is this blue one is when I was using, like in the 70s. That's the height of daily use. And then look down here. This is the 90s, 1.9%, a big drop and that's because the parents became alarmed at the high use of youth use, and they started educating about them and saying, listen, there's a lot of dangers you need to know about. And then use went back up. Can anyone guess why in 1996, use went from daily use of teenagers of 1.9%, very low, that it jumped up? Can anyone guess why that happened? There was a change in, I don't think I've got full screen, but Ava, you're gonna look for people who, our chairperson Schaefer, you're gonna look for people who raise their hand whenever there's an opportunity, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So there, what happened was we legalized marijuana for medicinal use in California. And so all of a sudden, the messaging went from, hey, this is dangerous, you guys, to it's medicine. And now here we have a whole commercial industry that's interested in telling you this is good for you. This is Tilray, one of the biggest marijuana corporations. And so tell me what you think of this poster. What does this poster tell you?
Commissioner Oplaka?
It's a form of advertising that they're trying to use celebrities to convince people to use marijuana.
Because it's saying what? What's it saying?
I guess you will be popular if you smoke marijuana.
Anybody else?
Commissioner Ringel?
I think if I can read it, it's a fundraiser where they might be getting people to purchase marijuana and the proceeds are going towards initiatives trying to find a cure for cancer.
Right, exactly. But look at the title, Smoke for a Cure. Now, some people interpret that as marijuana can cure cancer, or it's somehow, there's a positive association like, oh, this is going to help cancer. But actually, the marijuana plant is very similar to the tobacco plant, except the marijuana plant has a psychoactive component to it. But look, marijuana smoke contains 2 times as much tar and ammonia, 8 times as much hydrogen cyanide, and these are cancer-causing toxins. So it's kind of doublespeak because the industry is saying smoke for a cure, while it's like, that would be like Marlboro Man saying smoke for a cure for everyone. It's like, no, these two don't, the science is otherwise. So Ben Affleck had a similar mental health experience to what I had. And this was on what's considered today to be low potency marijuana. And we'll look at this over here. Back in the early 80s and 90s, it was 3.9% THC. What you get in Colorado, in California today is around 20%. So remember, if you have a predisposition to psychosis, a little bit of marijuana can do a lot of harm. And so imagine smoking something that's 4 to 5 times stronger than what harmed me and my brother. And the concentrates, what people are vaping, what they're dabbing, the edibles are 10, 20 times stronger than what I was using. And this is on a brain that isn't developed. So it is super, the products today are far more dangerous than the products that I was using back in the 80s and 90s. And again, you don't know if it's going to happen to you until it happens. And you can do it a couple of times and then all of a sudden it happens. And this is something that everybody must be aware of. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what psychosis is so that you can recognize it. In Colorado, they have had such a tough time with this, with youth use, because what they have found, and you have to go by what the data says, and the data is showing that the more access there is to pot shops, the more youth use there is. And one of the ways that youth are getting their hands on marijuana is this thing called looping. An 18-year-old can get a medical marijuana card. They can get it online. It's a recommendation. And the recommendation allows this 18-year-old person to go into a legal marijuana shop and purchase a lot of pot, a lot of weed. And that 18-year-old buys a lot of weed, walks out and sells it to their friends, their younger friends. And you've just created a drug dealer out of a medical marijuana user, because you can have pretty much, there's like 92 things that you can qualify for a medical marijuana card for. So this has created havoc in Colorado. It's and if you ever want to hear the testimony, they just had, there's like 7 hours of testimony on YouTube. You just look up Colorado HB House Bill 1317. And what they really wanted to do was to put a cap on the potencies. Let's just go back. They wanted to put a cap on how strong this marijuana can be, because the teens were using it and having horrible, horrible effects. And they were saying, we can't just put out any potency. We need to lower this potency. And so that was the original goal of the doctors who were behind this and the activists who were behind this. And what they ended up doing was having a compromise to study the negative long-term effects on mental health and physical health, especially to youth, and to close the looping, that 18 to 21, where the kids are going in, buying it and selling it to the younger kids gap. This is a warning label from Colorado, and this is not what it says in California. And it says here, there may be, first of all, it says, this product was produced without regulatory oversight for health, safety, or efficacy. There may be long-term physical or mental health risks from use. So at least they're telling people this. We don't say this in California. But in California, look at the emergency room visits since legalization. So here we are, 2005 down here, commercialization here, and legalization here. These are emergency room visits due to marijuana. So that's a 1,044% increase since 2005. And so can anyone guess what the side effects are? Because let me just circle back. A lot of people have heard that marijuana isn't a drug, that it's natural. Who's heard this? You can just raise your hand if you've heard that it's natural, it's not a drug. I hear it all the time. And so, but aspirin's a drug and it has side effects. Every drug has side effects. Just because it came from the earth doesn't mean it can't harm you. Poison ivy came from the earth too, but would you smoke it? So here are people are going to the emergency room because of their consumption of marijuana. And so what do you think are the side effects from these high potency products? Because it's mostly the concentrates that are causing these horrible side effects. Does anyone have any guess about what's happening?
Well, like you said earlier, there is psychosis, which can lead to a lot of mental problems. But with mental problems, it can kind of leave to them thinking that they have physical, like physical attributes. And I know from family members that what they call it is greening out, where you throw up and you do not feel good.
Yeah.
And it's just making you really, really sick.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. Anybody
Commissioner
else?
Ringel?
I think maybe also if people use too much like incoherence, which would just allow them to like possibly make decisions that can be dangerous. And I know like it kind of reminds me of the debate where it's like kind of controversial to give people who use needles safe needles, because like obviously you don't want them to be using these needles, but you'd prefer them to have safe ones so they're like not spreading HIV. It's the same thing where like, because a lot of people that are going to use marijuana either way, the only source that they can find is like, I guess, I don't know what the word for it is, because I'm not educated on this, but like impure or comes with a lot of chemicals, or like if you're using like an electronic device, maybe you end up burning like metal and getting like other toxins besides the THC in your lungs as well. So like if people, like I'm not saying that people should go get like an amazing source and then use that, but I'm saying that if people are going to use marijuana, sometimes maybe they're using sources that are more unsafe than like what pure marijuana would be.
Okay.
Commissioner Gray?
Yeah.
I would just like to also add on to Commissioner Ringel. It is pesticides which are being allowed into these products, and they are being allowed into these products by big companies, but they say it's not that bad because they have a low dosage of these pesticides.
Yeah, exactly. And even in the products that are found in legal pot shops, they find pesticides, mold, fungus, heavy metals. And so there's less of a chance, I think, from a legal pot shop than from the black market. Nonetheless, I mean, just do a quick Google search and say, fungus, pesticides found on a recall on legal weed, and just see what comes up. And California is not well regulated at all. Colorado, Massachusetts, they've all had recalls. And people who have cancer are using these products, and they're breathing in sometimes toxins and other impurities. So, and the plant, the natural plant that I was smoking in the 80s no longer exists. They don't make it anymore. It's been genetically engineered to be much, much stronger. So who can tell me what this is?
Commissioner Lee Chang, would you like to speak?
Sorry, just before this, I just had a quick question on that comment you said. So do you, because I was a bit lost, did you think that it was bad that cancer patients were using marijuana?
I think that if you are at the end of your life and there is nothing else that you can do, and if you have a certain neuropathic pain from cancer or from your cancer treatment, I know a lot of people that is their only choice. And that's the only thing that makes them feel better. And I am all for that. And I am all for the FDA approved THC, because there is a THC that you can get from an actual pharmacist and not from a pot shop. But I do want to be clear with you that because it was purchased from a legal dispensary does not guarantee that it is free of pesticides or fungus or mold or other impurities. And that's just the fact of it today. It is a very difficult drug to regulate, very, very difficult. And all the states where it's legalized, they have found these impurities. In fact, I know one woman whose sister was using marijuana, and she ended up dying from a fungal infection from the marijuana, not from her cancer. So, I mean, that's just a sad irony. So I do believe in whatever people need for end of life, but as a general, when people talk about it being a well-being, they must understand what the side effects are and what is actually on the plant these days. And so who can tell me what this is?
Commissioner Cherry?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about the cancer patients using marijuana. was it marijuana with THC or was it just CBD based?
So they're both from marijuana. So very astute point. Just the woman who was using it and that had fungus on it, it was from the THC. But I was on a webinar today listening to a doctor from who works actually for a cannabis company. And she said the CBD products that you buy, like at the gas station or at the gym or wherever, she said they have a lot of impurities in them as well, and not to get those. In addition to THC that you can get from a pharmacy, you can get from a doctor, there's also a pure CBD, which is called Epidiolex, and that can be purchased from a pharmacy. And it was developed from a mom who was a neuroscientist and whose son had epilepsy. And the only thing that helped him was this CBD, and it has been approved by our FDA. So that's terrific. And so you can go to a doctor and you can get Epidiolex and you can get a prescription from a pharmacy, and it will come to you with a warning label and tell you all the drug interactions. So, with the CBD, it is not regulated. And THC, although they say it is regulated, there are a lot of impurities and a lot of inconsistencies in the product. So just everybody needs to be aware that it's what it says on the label may not necessarily be what's in the product. And so, okay, so this. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something again?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask, would you prefer for the medical marijuana card that you can purchase at age 18? Would it be better if you could purchase it to do CBD, like to have CBD instead of THC because it's medical and it can help, heal instead?
I would definitely go to a doctor and consult with a doctor about it. There are less risks with CBD. There are a lot more risks with THC, but in terms of, I'm just not in the position to offer medical advice, but you can get both of them from a doctor. So if you know somebody who has cancer and wants relief from their pain, they can go see a regular doctor and say, I would like a prescription of THC. I would like a prescription for CBD. Would either one of them help me? And the doctor can talk to them about it. But if you go to a pot shop, a legal pot shop, a medicinal shop, all you have is a recommendation from a physician. They don't tell you how much to take. They don't tell you what time to take it. They don't tell you how much is safe. You just walk in and you talk to a person working behind the counter, and that person makes probably minimum wage and they don't have any medical training, and they're going to tell you what kind of product you should use. I mean, don't you want, if it's medicinal, shouldn't you get exact dosing? So that's my problem with medical marijuana. They don't give dosing. They don't tell you exactly when you should take it and how much is too much. None of that. You're on your own. You and the bud tender. I think it's tough. A lot of bad, which is one of the reasons why we have rise in emergency room visits. I hope I answered your question. Okay, and so does anybody know what this is?
Commissioner Gray?
That is wax, which is a medical, not medical, but is a marijuana concentration, which kind of like really heightens everything.
Yes. And do you know, there's a term for it. Do you know? Or a way of using it? Do you know about what that might be?
Yes, I do. And again, this is from family experiences. This is not personal experiences. But what they do, you light up the wax and inhale it.
Yeah. What do you light it with?
A blowtorch.
Yes. A blowtorch. And that's it. Okay. So that's called dabbing. This is called a dab. It's very important to remember that term. It's a dab, and the use of it is called dabbing. And when we talk about the higher concentrates, This is as high as, well, I think there are some newer products that are even higher, but this is one of the highest that you can get. And so, Commissioner Gray, you were talking about vomiting. And so you look here, dude takes 2 hits of dabs and won't stop throwing up. And so what some cancer patients use marijuana for is the chemotherapy makes them nauseous. And so they use marijuana to help with their nausea and makes them stop wanting to vomit. But used at higher concentrations, like in the dabs, it does the opposite to some people. And then they start throwing up. And this used to be rare, and it has become far more common. And it's called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, CHS. And so it's funny enough to put on YouTube, but it's not funny when you're going to the emergency room and you can't stop throwing up. And there's, if you have any friends that are experiencing any kind of distress in their stomach, then they need to tell them to go to this Facebook page. It's a private page, and it's doubled in the last year. It used to be like 5,000 members. Now it's well over 11. And these are all people who have gone to the emergency room, many of them, and who suffer from throwing up or diarrhea or other kind of gastric problems from their use of high potency products. Here's psychosis. This is where you just completely lose touch with reality. Man goes retarded from first dab. That's 1 hit of a dab. And look, that's a little barf next to him. So if you think about me using 4 or 5% THC back in the 80s, and I lost touch with reality and it was really scary, look at how much more intense it is today. And some people go on and they become convinced that something is happening when it isn't, and they do dangerous things. They walk onto a freeway, or some people think they're just gonna, it's an increased risk to suicide. So, I hope that you all will consider hearing from Laura Stack, whose son died by suicide from his use of high potency marijuana products. They made him completely psychotic, and he took his own life before the age of 20. It's so sad. And then some people go on and chronically use it, and this is schizophrenia. This is what we see on the streets. People who long-term, it's not just an acute psychotic episode like the guy we saw doing snow angels in the gravel, but homeless people who chronically walk around with schizophrenia. And that was my brother. For 10 years, he lived on the streets or was in jail. And so, and then 2 quick other little risks I need to tell you about. This came out just a month or so ago, that people under the age of 45 are more likely to have a heart attack if they use cannabis. It doesn't matter what kind you're using. That's under 45, you've doubled your risk for heart attack. And then out today, that people who are vaccinated, they are more likely to have a breakthrough case of COVID if they use cocaine or cannabis. All other substances don't have as bad of an effect on the immune system as cocaine and cannabis. And so remember, you're breathing something into your lungs. All we want in our lungs is air. We don't want tobacco. We don't want marijuana. And it affects the heart. And so COVID is a lungs and heart problem. And so we don't want to do anything that's going to affect those things, especially during COVID-19. So when we talk about wearing masks and when we talk about vaccinations, remember that breakthrough cases with a vaccination are happening at higher rates with young people because of their use of cannabis. And so I'm sure I've gone over my time. And so I am going to stop right now and hope that you all, A Night in Jail is at the Redondo Beach Public Library. I hope that you will check it out. And it's a gritty story, and I hope a fun one. And I'm available to take questions if we have time.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Swan. We really appreciate you coming here and giving us this presentation. Commissioner Gray, did you have a question?
Yes. With all this information, how do you think we would be able to spread it to the community and especially kids in high school? And how do you think we will be able to protect them further from getting underage, from purchasing these things underage?
I think really the key is, first of all, if anyone here would like to share what you know about kids using marijuana and access to marijuana and want to share that at the city council meeting, Redondo Beach City Council meeting, I would encourage you to do so. You can do it from Zoom, just like we're doing now. So you can be doing homework up until public comments and say, what your experience has been or what kind of youth use you have seen. And I think it's really important everybody weighs in. And like I said, I voted for it, but I'm not for it anymore because I've seen so much more normalization in our community. And so I think the most important thing is that everybody understands what the risks are, because if everybody knew, it can increase heart attack, stroke, and I didn't have a chance to talk about seizures, and increase the risk for, because the long-term use of marijuana, it may make you feel better in the short term, but the studies show that long-term use increases the risk for anxiety, depression, and suicide. Because the high potency products, and this is what a doctor said today on a webinar I was listening to, it's like taking a sledgehammer to your body's natural endocannabinoid system. We already have natural ones in our body, natural ways to feel good. And when you put a high potency product, and that's pretty much every product on the market today is considered high potency because it's over 10%, you're really harming your brain, especially as it's developing, especially because it just needs to do all of these very specific things. Okay, so let me tell you one thing. Do you all know about paranoia? You know how some people feel paranoid on marijuana? Have you heard about that? Okay, then let's make it common knowledge with all your friends that paranoia is one of the first symptoms of psychosis. That's really important to know because a person is becoming convinced something is happening when it's not happening. And so it's a symptom of psychosis. And so that's a really good indication that that person may be like me and maybe needs to really, really stay away from these products as a long-term solution. So for me, Commissioner Gray, education is the key, that everyone needs to understand in the same way we understand the risks of smoking cigarettes, we need to understand all the risks with marijuana use. So in Colorado, they ended up passing a bill and it was voted on unanimously from both sides of the aisle, almost unanimously. I think there were 5 people who didn't vote for it, but to study the negative long-term effects on the kids mentally and physically from the vomiting and the psychosis and the suicide that they had seen there. And so we're 5 years behind Colorado. And so we really need to pay attention to what has happened there. So everybody just needs to know the truth, I think. And if after you guys want to make a recommendation, I would like to request a recommendation or an awareness to the city council about how you think it may affect youth use. If there's a consensus, I would really appreciate that.
Chairperson, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Would I need to do a motion for that?
Well, that's a separate topic that needs to be brought to the commission. But if you would like to see that on the next agenda, we could definitely do that.
For discussion?
Discussion prior to action, yes.
Okay. And I would need to get a motion for this now?
Well, yes, if someone wants to make the recommendation and we get a vote, we can go ahead and move forward with that, yes.
Okay. Can I get a motion to add this to the discussion calendar?
Anyone? Anyone?
Motion.
Motion by Vice Chair Lee,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Gray. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Any further comments or questions for Mrs. Swan? Seeing none, moving on.
Okay.
And also, it's kind of my attention that I accidentally skipped the salute to the flag at the beginning of the meeting. Should I do that now?
It's okay. We can move forward. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. It's a real honor to be able to speak with you all. And if you have any questions for me, you can contact me at anightinjail.com. There's a contact me button on the website. And thank you all and stay healthy.
And thank you for joining us, Ms. Swan.
Thank you.
For having me. Okay.
Okay. Member items and referrals to staff. Seeing none, moving on. And
Well,
finally-
hold on a second.
No?
It's this is when you ask if there are any member items or referrals to staff, and then you can ask the commission, and they can show by raising their hand or making a comment now.
Okay. Are there any member items and referrals to staff?
Okay, now we can move forward.
Seeing none, moving on. And finally, adjournment. The next meeting of the Redondo Beach Youth Commission will be a regular meeting.
Sorry.
Oh, yes? Commissioner Lee Chang?
Yeah, I just missed a moment of that because I was never given a run through on what these meant. But are we not able to discuss the topic of the power plant? Because I feel like that's way more pressing considering the meeting is in 2 weeks to pass the vote to extend the power plant.
It was not an item for discussion prior to action on this agenda, but it can be added on the future agenda because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't put on the agenda to be discussed prior to action. If you would like to discuss it, I can definitely put it on the next agenda so that we can discuss it further.
I mean, yeah, there really isn't much point if we're going to wait. By that point, I believe the power plant will be standing there until 2023. But sure, if we could add it to the next agenda, please.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Could I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
Could the commission call a special meeting to have the discussion about the power plant?
Yes, actually, we can.
There might be your answer.
Could I get a motion for that?
Well, Chairperson Schaefer, you would have to call for the motion.
Yeah. Can I get a motion to call a special meeting to discuss the power plant?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Oplatka.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fukushima. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Another question. When would the
Yes.
special meeting be held?
We need to look at the calendar to see when that's a possibility. I mean, we could do it as early as next week. I have to look at the commission's calendar here. Hold on just a second.
I know that there's a council meeting on Tuesday and we have a Recreation and Parks Commission meeting on Wednesday.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. It's possible to possibly do it next Thursday since I don't see anything on the actual calendar as far as meetings go. But we could definitely try for next Thursday if you guys would like to hold a special meeting.
Okay, yeah, I mean, do we need a vote for that or?
Yes, and I will check with the city clerk to see when and post that and get an agenda for the special meeting as soon as possible. It has to be at least 72 hours before the actual meeting.
Okay. Do we have to do anything to confirm the date or are we good?
Yeah, let's shoot for next week, Thursday.
Thursday the 14th?
Yes, because Michael, Commissioner Chang, when is the meeting going for that vote?
It
You know?
is Tuesday, October 19th.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to do it next week sometime before the actual meeting. So if next Thursday works for everyone, that's when I'll try to hold a special meeting for that. Okay?
Okay. Commissioner Lee, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I have a question. I've heard that we can make recommendations to city council. I'm not entirely aware of where on the agenda that would have to be and what we'd have to do in order to get there, because it seems like we get all these presentations, but then we don't do anything with
Well,
them.
that's what this item was for. This item was for discussion prior to action. And so we had this discussion with Heidi Swan, right? And now we can make a recommendation to council. So if
Okay,
you
but
guys,
like when in the agenda would that occur?
right after the presentation that she just had.
All right, so then
Well,
if we wanted to right now, we could make a recommendation.
Yes. So you could state, I'd like to propose that we make a recommendation to council regarding whatever it is that you want to recommend to council.
Okay, and would that be a motion?
And then once he states that, then we have a motion. Someone needs to second that motion, and then we vote on it. Yes.
Okay. Can I get a motion to make a recommendation to city council
Regarding,
would it be the power plant or Heidi's presentation?
Commissioner Lee, Vice Chair Lee,
I think because we can't make one about the power plant right now, from what I'm gathering, about Heidi's presentation about not having marijuana dispensaries in Redondo Beach.
Okay. Can I get a motion to advise the city council regarding the marijuana dispensaries in Redondo Beach?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Opłatka,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Lee. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
okay, so from here, there has to be an administrative report that goes to city council. And I have to forward that to the clerk's office to see if we can't get that in the agenda. Now, for the special meeting, I was just informed that there is an actual, the Budget and Finance Commission meeting on Thursday night, so that's unavailable. But I will look into the, at the calendar to see what's available and contact you all tomorrow and forward an email. And when I call a special meeting, that's going to be, we're going to have to set it up just like this meeting and inform the public of the special meeting. And I think that only needs, it needs less time, but we can definitely do that sometime next week. I need to talk with the city clerk to find out when we can schedule that meeting next week if possible.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Opłatka?
Yeah, I just had a question because I remember at the end of the last meeting, we went over what we were going to talk about next meeting. I brought this issue up and we were told that it was going to be put into this agenda.
I didn't say it was, I said we had recommendations for topics.
Oh, I see.
But there was nothing specific. So I sent an email to Commissioner Chang because he asked about the AES power plant. And I need to find someone that's willing and able to attend the meeting, and more specifically, what the topics are that we need to discuss.
Okay.
So if you guys could email me whatever items that are topics, or more specifically to discuss, I could find someone to talk about it, or I could try to find someone that would talk with us that's more well versed in the AES power plant than myself.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any further member items and referrals to staff? No. Seeing none, moving on. And finally,
I'm sorry, I just received an email from the deputy city clerk that in order to host a special meeting, we do need the vote that we just had needs to be a roll call vote. So I will go through down the list, and you can vote either aye or nay on the special meeting, on hosting the special meeting next week. So Vice Chair Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
Chairperson Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Wassing.
Aye.
Commissioner Au.
Aye.
Commissioner Manzano. Okay, Commissioner Ablaka.
Aye.
Commissioner Chang.
Aye.
Commissioner Ringgold.
Aye.
Commissioner Cherry.
Aye.
Commissioner Fukushima.
Aye.
Adult member Gamut.
Aye.
Adult member Stover.
Aye.
Okay. Well, it seems like it was voted passed, and we'll move forward with a special meeting. Okay, so I will contact you as soon as I know when we can schedule that.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, adjournment. The next meeting of the Redondo Beach Youth Commission will be a regular meeting to be held at 6:30 p.m. on December 2nd, 2021 in the Redondo Beach Council Chambers at 415 Diamond Street, Redondo Beach, California via teleconference. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Vice Chair Lee.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gray. All in favor, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you
Great.
everyone for
Thanks the meeting.
attending.
Thanks everyone for showing up, and I'll be in touch with information about the special meeting.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
bye.
And have a good weekend. Bye-bye.